I think we have enough chairs at the back, and there's one or two just at the front here. So on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber, and the Canadian Federation of University Women, I'd like to welcome you to this evening. Joanne Robbins normally would welcome you, I believe, but Joanne has just had too much Pumpkin Fest and has lost her voice totally. But thank you, Joanne, for being co-sponsors with us. We appreciate it. So thank you very much to all of our candidates this evening. Welcome to the group. And to you, our audience, it's good to see so many people interested in the process and to come out and hear our candidates who are running in our October the 19th election. I'd also like to thank John Davinsky for being our chair and moderator, and maybe getting the hook out if he needs it, I think, perhaps. And Heather Conlon is our timer, and she is the Vice President of our Canadian Federation of University Women. So we'll get started right away, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the Canadian Federation of University Women. Events like this are very important so that you can have the information you need to mark an intelligent vote. You've come out, you've learned the policies, you know what the parties stand for, then you can make your vote. Okay? My name is John Davinsky from 98 The Beach Radio. I am the moderator for this evening. I'm going to run through very quickly the agenda. In a matter of moments, we will hear opening statements from our candidates, which will be done in alphabetical order. Following that, questions from the floor will be entertained. And I'll tell you more about that when we get to that section of the evening. We'll end with closing statements from our candidates done in reverse alphabetical order. Now, before we start, if I could ask everyone to turn off their cell phones or put them on vibrate, it would be much appreciated. I don't have to tell you why. You know what happens when they go off. It's embarrassing to you and can be a distraction to those that are speaking. Appreciate it very much. All right, without further ado, we meet our candidates for Huron-Bruce riding. Each candidate has up to 10 minutes for their opening statements. Now, candidates, Heather Conlon is here. Where's Heather? Here she is. She's our timekeeper tonight, and she has a white card, which you see there. She will raise that to let you know that you have 30 seconds left in your allotted time. When that turns into magically a red card, your time is up. And we'll ask you to wrap up as quickly as possible and be done with it. But with 10 minutes, I think it's fair to say you should be able to get your message in. It will be my job to make sure we stick to the 10-minute time limit. So please adhere to it. It'd be much appreciated. So we go in alphabetical order. Please welcome our first speaker representing the NDP, Gerard Cressis.
Hello. Hello again. My name is Gerard Cressis, and I'm your NDP candidate in Huron-Bruce. This election presents an opportunity to change directions after nearly 150 years of red and blue governments. This election presents an opportunity for progress and for prosperity. Our first and third place parties have both had the opportunity to improve this country with majority governments over the last 20 years. So why are they only adopting progress now? People want it, and that's why our volunteer team is robust and still growing. That's why more people are showing their orange pride with lawn signs than ever before. The NDP's roots are in fighting for the rights of workers, farmers, and our most vulnerable, championing healthcare and old age security. Those are our legacies to protect. But those systems need to be improved, and they need to be contemporized. And so does politics. Because the next generation of voters don't feel they have a choice that reflects their views. The next generation of voters is leaving Huron-Bruce because our opportunities have dried up, and we have to start creating some for them to come home to. Now, poverty and inequality are killing this riding, and that's why I got into this race. I don't want to see our hometowns fade away, and I know nobody does, because we are all stronger than that. And I know this because I've been there all along the way. writing stories, taking photos, following up on our greatest successes, and sadly, our greatest tragedies. I'm 34 years old. I've been working in local news for nearly 10 years now in communities across the region, and I have an intimate knowledge of how rural Ontario works because it's been the focus of my entire career. Now, I'm fully committed to fighting for the people of this riding because, let's face it, we have been kept down for a long time. People are working longer, paying more, and earning less. And rather than bicker, we could be trying to break the cycles of rural poverty that affect widowed seniors and young single mothers disproportionately in this riding. We could be addressing the fact that in Bruce County and in Huron County, the average person's wage is less than half the provincial average. We could be promoting solid succession planning for our Main Street businesses and our farmers. Now, these things are at the core of the NDP's policies, along with providing affordable childcare for young parents, lifting 200,000 seniors out of poverty, hiring 7,000 new doctors and nurses, investing in long-term care. But to do that, we actually have to make sure that people see dignity in every job and understand that no contribution is ever insignificant if it's done with heart and it's done with effort. Now, I'm a first-generation Canadian on my father's side, or new stock if you go by Harper's definition. My family came to Canada from Belgium 8 years after the Second World War because my grandfather didn't want his sons to go through what he went through when he was in the army. Canada accepted them and accepted us with open arms. But Canada's arms are closing, and so is its mind. The politics of division have tuned the next generation out already, and people are afraid. They're afraid of the unknown, they're afraid for their jobs, they're afraid for their families. And now, the Reds and Blues want you to be afraid of us. Now, the Conservatives will tell you Canada can't afford to put the NDP into government, but meanwhile, under Harper, they have racked up 1/4 of Canada's total debt since Confederation. The Liberals will try to tell you that an NDP vote is a wasted vote. Meanwhile, they are the third-place party in Huron-Bruce, and they have gone through 5 leaders in 5 elections. Now, the NDP wants, as do I, to shift the focus back to people, because it's our votes that build governments, and it's our votes that can take them down. My Canada has consequences when the powerful prey on the weak. Now, that's why I admire Tom Mulcair. He's a man of principle, a family man, and an experienced public servant. He's leader of Canada's official opposition. He's fought to keep Canada together. He's made some tough choices to protect our civil liberties. And he wants to create harmony between environment and industry. Harper puts foreign profits before national prosperity, telling us it's for our own good when our factories close. Trudeau changes his mind with the polls, but he'll soon have to learn that when you promise to be all things to all people, you let everyone down. Elizabeth May is a tremendous diplomat, and if the NDP wins this election, every single Green vote will count in the next election because we stand for proportional representation. So to all those small C Conservatives who Harper ignored, to all those Blue Liberals who want stability, to all those Greens who want a truly fair election next time, join with me and vote NDP. Join with us, and let's take the power back. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. Our next candidate from the Conservatives is Ben Lobb.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can everybody hear me at the back there okay? Okay, yeah. See thumbs up, no fingers up, so that's a good start to the evening. Thanks very much, John. I want to thank the Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce, the Canadian Federation of University Women, and the community for your hospitality tonight. Since 2008, I have worked hard to deliver results for the people of Huron-Bruce. I've been engaged with residents from north to south, east to west. Young, old, farm, town, sports, industry, education, and healthcare. The reward for being your representative is to be part of your lives. But the task goes much deeper. In the 2008 election, I committed to opening a constituency office in Bruce County. The Port Elgin constituency office has helped individuals with a wide variety of federal government matters, from visas, passports, to immigration, employment insurance, pensions, and income tax. Through the Port Elgin office alone, we've helped over 3,000 people process their passports. We've also held passport clinics in every corner of the riding to bring services right to your doorstep. Since 2008, I've helped to deliver over $137 million in federal funding to this riding, and over $12 million alone to Saugeen Shores for infrastructure, seniors programs, affordable housing, environmental initiatives, local festivals, economic development, and jobs. This community has seen numerous infrastructure projects funded through the federal government, including the popular North Shore Waterfront Trail that connects Port Elgin to Southampton. Almost $2 million in funding for the Port Elgin and Southampton harbors, a 28-unit affordable housing complex on Wellington Street in Port Elgin, sewer and stormwater projects, including the sewer project north of Saugeen River, and just recently, the rehabilitation of Ferry Lake through Canada 150 program that will see the work begin in 2016. The municipality of Saugeen Shores also receives $360,000 in stable, predictable federal gas tax funds for infrastructure projects in the municipality every single year. We've also provided funding to the Canadian Big Band celebration for over 4 years, in addition to Pumpkin Fest and numerous programs at the Bruce County Museum. And one of the highlights was the 1812 display they had a couple years ago. I've worked hard for this riding, and our government is on track to keep our economy moving in the right direction. Since our government was first elected in 2006, we've remained focused on what matters most to Canadians. Our top priority has and continues to be jobs and economic growth. We have provided substantial tax relief in every budget since 2006, and a typical family with children is now receiving tax relief and increased benefits of up to $6,600 a year. This includes cutting the GST from 7% to 5%, establishing and expanding the universal child care benefit, enacting the family tax cut, increasing the annual child care expense deduction limit, and introducing and doubling the children's fitness tax credit, which is $1,000 this year. Our government has also taken significant action to meet the needs of seniors. We have provided over $2.5 billion in annual tax relief to seniors and pensioners since 2006, including introducing pension income splitting, increasing the age limit for RSPs to RIFs, that's up to 71 years old, and establishing the tax-free savings account. Budget 2015 included additional measures to help seniors by increasing the tax-free savings amount contribution limit to $10,000, reducing the minimum withdrawal for RIFs at age 71, introducing the home accessibility tax credit, which is new this year, and extending the employment insurance compassionate care benefit from 6 weeks to 6 months. And a re-elected Conservative government will establish a $2,000 single seniors tax credit that will extend additional annual tax relief to nearly 1.6 million single and widowed seniors. Our government is committed to steadily increasing health transfer payments to provinces and territories, reaching at least $40 billion by 2021 and $13 billion in healthcare transfers alone this year to Ontario. We've also supported research and deliver programs and initiatives to develop innovative healthcare support systems, promote healthy aging, and help prevent and manage chronic diseases and conditions. Small businesses make up 98% of all companies in Canada, and our record of support for Canada's small businesses remains strong. We've introduced the Small Business Job Credit, lowered employment insurance premiums, cut red tape, and enhanced the Canada Small Business Financing Program to help small businesses get the loans they need to grow. We're building on that record by cutting the small business tax rate to 9%. Now, in contrast, the Liberals, they've announced they'll run a $10 billion deficit for 3 years and maybe more. They will dramatically hike payroll taxes on middle-class Canadians, costing the average worker $1,000 per year for someone earning $60,000. And don't forget the employer will pay that amount as well. They plan to introduce a $2 billion hike on EI payroll taxes, put a price on carbon, all leaving our economy fragile, exposed, costing you money, and risking your job and your retirement. Our government understands that small businesses are essential to Canada's overall prosperity. On the topic of exports, exports from Canada to the world are up 50% since 2009. With 1 in 5 Canadian jobs now tied to exports, trade is vital to Canada's continued economic prosperity. Our government has expanded the number of countries Canada has free trade agreements from 5 to 51, equal to more than half of the world's global marketplace. Just this week, the announcement of the Trans-Pacific Partnership will give Canadian businesses access to some of the most dynamic markets in the world. It will protect and create Canadian jobs, grow every sector in our economy. It is a 12-nation market of almost 800 million consumers with a gross domestic product of 28 trillion, over 14 times the size of Canada's economy. Canada is now the only G7 nation with free trade access to all of the US and Americas, Europe, and the Asia Pacific. That's 60% of the world's economy. Every sector and region of the Canadian economy will benefit from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, including the auto sector, agriculture, and our supply managed sectors. Trans-Pacific Partnership creates the opportunity for more Canadian cars and parts to be exported. Canadians build and export over 6 times the number of Japanese cars that we import from Japan itself. The auto package will strengthen our integrated North American auto industry and position Canadian auto part makers and car makers to continue to succeed, protect, and create jobs here at home. In addition, every sector of Canada's agriculture and agri-food industry will benefit. TPP has fully protected Canada's supply and managed sector and will have limited access to just 3.2% of our domestic dairy market. Export opportunities have been created for Canadian dairy, poultry, and egg producers across the TPP region. Our government is also supporting communities across this country with the largest and longest infrastructure plan in Canadian history. Through the new Building Canada plan, we are making unprecedented investments and are generating economic growth and job creation while improving the quality of life in our communities. All along, we stuck to our plan, and this year's budget is in surplus, and in the first 5 months of this year, it's over $5 billion. But we all know that we've got a lot of work to do yet. And so the question on election day is, what is the best way forward? Our government's low-tax, balanced budget plan is providing real, concrete tax relief and enhanced benefits to all Canadians. It's a plan that is supported by prudent fiscal management and a commitment to help hardworking Canadians buy and invest in their homes, cover their costs of childcare, save for their children's education, and prepare for retirement. And it's a plan that is working. Taxes are lower, benefits are higher. We have accomplished these things because of the choices we've made. Our plan is rooted in a solid fiscal foundation of prudent spending, balanced budgets, and a low public debt. Thank you tonight for the evening, the opportunity to debate. On October 19th, I ask you to vote Ben Law, vote Conservative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben Law. Our third candidate, alphabetically, from the Green Party, please welcome Jutta Spletstosser.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored that you take the time out of your busy life and actually come and give me the opportunity to introduce myself and what I stand for and what the Green Party has to offer to all of you. My name is Jutta Spletstosser. I was born and raised in Germany. That's where I received a very balanced education, an appreciation for the arts, for practical work. And I learned from my parents some really basic skills, to have respect for my neighbors and for the environment. And I think, so I stayed in Germany until I acquired my master's degree in plant science, and my international apprenticeship brought me exactly to Kincardine. Farming is what brought me here, and I really learned to appreciate that what this part of the world has to offer. The future is here. look at the enormous water resources. And so I decided to start a family and a business with my husband. You are all welcome, even after this campaign, to stop at 909 South Lyon and have some local pressed apple juice and see what farming is all about, and see how we produce non-GMO soybeans, winter wheat, and also produce electricity. I think when people see it, they start to believe it. And also when you dream, plan, and do it. And so we have 4 children, my husband and our 4 children. We work as a team. And because of my children, I think I stand here in front of you. My 17-year-old who is figure skating tonight, she said to me, "Mom, you always wanted to serve your country. Just do it." So I signed up to, and I have to offer you my leadership, my willingness to listen. Every door I knock on, there is a story that's been told. Something is, and often people are afraid to speak, but I feel that they have the confidence and trust me, and I make the experience. For instance, in Holmesville, there was a man who said, "I didn't know, like, what's the Green Party's on the divorce law?" And he was a former candidate, and he never knew that the Green Party has to offer something. And he said, "Wow, I didn't know." And when I emailed him that night the policy book, the next morning he emailed me back. He said, "Wow, I've never experienced this with a politician. You really do what you say." And that's what the kids asked me in grade 4 and 5. Do you really do what you say? So I hope I can live up to this standard. But so let me tell you, the Green Party, like, it is a national party. It's not a one-issue party. I think that becomes more and more clear as you hear our leaders speak, as little as it's possible. But McLean's debate, just tune in. It's still online. And in August, when Elizabeth May was able to speak with all the other leaders, people greeted me at the door and said, "You have the best leader." And I said, "Yeah, I'm proud of her, and I have the same values, follow the same principles." Before she signed my papers, I had to vouch that I would not heckle in Parliament, and that I would conduct myself respectfully. And so she gives me the trust, because that is what she expects the MPs to do, Green MPs, but she gives in return to us the freedom that we can work for you. We can work for our constituency. She thinks every region is very unique, and you will tell me what you need, and I will vote on your behalf, and not on Elizabeth May's behalf. She does not whip votes. That's really what differentiates the Green Party from all the other parties. But so we have a very comprehensive policy book. Go please on greenparty.ca and have a look. It's about 180 pages, and it really covers all parts of life. And so our platform is out and stands on 4 major pillars. It's sustainable economy, strong communities, good government, and real climate action. And so I think the programs that we probably later on speak a little bit about as well is guaranteed livable income. I think is very, very means a lot to a lot of people in society that experience like all these little programs, and as you heard before, it's so comprehensive you need a big list to read off. But if you provide for all citizens a guaranteed livable income of $20,000 a year, then that is basically keeps people out of poverty. And that's basically the bottom floor that nobody should fall underneath. So it is unacceptable that there's 5 billion people in poverty in a rich country like us. And we have a national senior strategy which is, I think, a lot of you, and it won't take long till, I mean, I look younger than I am. I am 46, so, but we have to take good care of the people that built the country, that we don't have to worry about aging in your home. And so there's all kinds of plans to build strong communities. And for our young people, which are not that many here, but next week we have our last debate, all of us in Walkerton at the school there, high school, like having the opportunity to go and have an education or skilled training without the fear of having a terrible debt, and a government that borrows money at prime rate and then lends it to one of the highest interest rates in the world. I think that's almost a crime. And we want to change that, and our goal is to abolish tuition by 2020, and we have a plan. So I know on the radio this morning I was asked, well, how is the Green Party able to finance this all? So yeah, I mean, nobody likes taxes, but how fair is that corporate taxes were always lowered? Like for those who didn't follow it, it was lowered from almost 30% down to 15%. And it did not give us what we expected. Like the mantra is like, oh, if we are, like they're the job creators. But Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England, former governor of the Bank of Canada, pointed out really clear that there was a lot of money saved by corporations, which is kind of dead money. And so the Green Party has a plan. We will lower taxes for small businesses because they're job creators. And that's almost all the parties are kind of almost agreeing on it. They don't always vote for it when it comes to Parliament, but like, I still don't have an answer from Mr. Lobb why he voted against this one bill where it was about lowering taxes. But anyways, we are able to pay for all, like to have a balanced budget with a small surplus and pay down the national debt. That's the plan. But by increasing corporate taxes to the level it was in 2009, so to 19%, also getting rid of fossil fuel subsidies. We find it unacceptable for an industry that doesn't need a boost, like a startup boost, still gets $1 billion of subsidies. I mean, how much sense does that make? And as we realize more and more, we are, like even our Prime Minister signed, I guess I'm not sure how much arm twisting that was necessary from Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, but he's committed somewhat. I don't know the precise text, but I get the science. So anyways, one last thing. The last time I was here in this building, I was just listening at the DGR hearings, and that's another reason why I'm standing here. I am the only candidate that opposes the nuclear waste burial in the Great Lakes Basin, and it doesn't, like low and intermediate and high level waste. I'm the only candidate that spent enormous amount of time that I can speak from knowledge. And the Green Party has also a stand, and there is 2 municipalities.
Time, Jutta.
Yeah.
Time.
So thank you so much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Jutta. And now from the Liberal Party, Ellen Thompson.
Good evening, everyone. This has been a very long election campaign, too long, in my opinion, but also a great exercise in democracy, and I'm very happy to see so many of you here this evening taking part, and here, I guess, to make a very, very important decision. You will have to choose what kind of government you want, but really you'll have to choose who you want as your next Member of Parliament here in Huron-Bruce. So I think it's important for us to present ourselves, to tell you who we are, what we're about, and to explain a little bit about our party's platform and how that connects with us and our own sort of priorities here in a riding like Huron-Bruce. My name is Alan Thompson. I was born and raised not far from here, near a little village called Glamis, on a farm. Wonderful place to grow up, although I have to admit I didn't end up pursuing a career in farming. I went off to university, studied journalism, worked for most of my working career as a reporter. I did start with the Kincardine Independent newspaper here in Bruce County, and then worked with the Toronto Star newspaper for 17 years as a reporter. About a decade of that time I was working on Parliament Hill. And the last 12 years I have worked as a university professor. I teach journalism at Carleton University. But throughout that time I've remained very connected to my home, to Bruce County. I'm a product of Bruce County. I've spent close to half of my life here. I have also lived and worked in other places, and I think I've gained important experience in that time. And in a way, as someone seeking to be a Member of Parliament for a rural riding like Huron-Bruce, and to represent you as best I can in Ottawa, I think it is useful to essentially have a foot in both of those worlds. A couple of years ago, my family and I made a very important decision. As all of us up here know, it's quite an endeavor to put your name on a ballot and to run for office. And it's not an easy decision to make, but we made that one and decided that I would take the plunge here in Huron-Bruce and put myself forward as a candidate for the Liberal Party. And quite frankly, that decision had an awful lot to do with a man named Stephen Harper. And I simply reached a point in my life where I could no longer remain on the sidelines. I couldn't watch what Mr. Harper was doing to my country. And at the same time, was very much drawn to the positive, optimistic vision that Justin Trudeau is putting forward for Canada. And that is the reason why I chose to run and why I chose to run here in Huron-Bruce. Now, during this campaign, I've been putting forward three simple themes to try and explain what it is I'm about, why I'm running for office, and the kind of things that I would like to do as your Member of Parliament. Those are integrity, fairness, and the need for a rural voice in a riding like Huron-Bruce. Integrity. I hear about integrity, or maybe the lack of it, every day when I knock on doors. I find that many people share my sense of frustration, sometimes even anger, with the direction that this country has gone in the last decade under Stephen Harper. And it's not the Canada that I grew up in, and I feel very strongly it's time for a change. We need to do everything we can to restore integrity to the political process in Canada. I can't forgive Mr. Harper for changing the political culture in this country to a state where we're now almost accustomed to being bombarded by attack ads and the sort of cynicism and negativity that creates. We have to change that. I think we also have to change in very real ways the way we're governed. And we do have that opportunity. The Liberal Party has put forward a very, very detailed proposal for open government in Canada. And this is not slogans, very practical steps to open up the Prime Minister's office, allow access to information in places where it has never occurred, and refashion the role of the ordinary Member of Parliament so they can truly be the voice of their communities in Ottawa. Play a significant role, not just in the House of Commons when they vote, which is important, but a meaningful role in their party caucus, where they can often speak up most loudly for their communities, but also to play that role in the other parts of Parliament, in the committee process, As part of this reform, we have to do away with omnibus bills that are really an abuse of the parliamentary process in Canada. This is not the way laws should be made. The other issue I've been talking about is fairness. We need to return to the kind of Canada where our primary concern is taking care of others before we try to take care of ourselves. We need a Canada where the focus of government is not sort of niche tax cuts that might attract votes and attention and help wealthier Canadians. We need to look long and hard at our system and look for ways to make it more fair. Mr. Lobb talked about the universal child benefit. The Conservative Party and the NDP are both in favor of this measure, which gives benefits to people with children, but it gives the same amount to everyone. The Liberal Party says, no, let's do it a different way. Let's be more fair. Don't give these benefits to wealthier Canadians who don't need them. Give more money to those in a lower tax bracket who need the help. We need the same approach to seniors, to affordable housing, and frankly, perhaps to run a deficit and invest in this country, in our communities, at the most important time in our history to make those types of investments. A rural voice. Everyone who lives in Huron-Bruce, by definition, if you live here, you live in a small town, on a country road, or on a farm. Every single person. There aren't a lot of ridings like that. This is one of the most rural ridings in the country. And that means it needs a member of Parliament whose absolute top priority is standing up for the people who live on those farms and country roads and small towns. Every time an initiative, a piece of legislation, changes to the regulations, everything that comes across the desk of government, my role would be to stand up and say, what does this mean for the people who live in rural communities like Huron-Bruce? The people of Huron-Bruce deserve no less than a member of Parliament who is their voice in Ottawa, not the voice of Ottawa in Huron-Bruce. Those three themes, I think, have been central to the campaign that I've been running to try and restore integrity to the political process, to put forward policies that create fairness in our society, and to present myself as a member of Parliament who would be a rural voice for a riding like Huron-Bruce. These have been long opening statements, so I think I should just conclude so that we can have more time for debate and discussion. But I do have to say, on October 19th, vote for real change, vote Liberal, vote for Alan Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, and we move to the next portion of this particular event. That is questions from the floor, and as you can see, we are positioning the microphone so that we can hear the questions from the various people. Let me tell you the rules here. Each person asking a question needs to identify themselves and where they are from. Okay, identify yourself and where you are from. You know the candidates would like to know you when the question is asked. Questioners will have 1 minute to ask their question. The red card rule will apply here as well. Not that you might see it, but you'll hear it from me. Questioners, 1 minute to ask a question. And all the time I've been in news, I've never heard a 60-second question. So if you go longer than 60 seconds, it means you're on the soapbox. And that isn't what this is intended for. It's intended for questions. Now, your question can be directed to a specific candidate. However, following that, I will ask all candidates to answer that same question. Otherwise, we're not getting a fair and balanced look at that particular question. Candidates, when the questions come, you will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and again, The white card and the red card rule will apply. So those are the rules, and now we ask you to step up to the microphone if you have a question for our candidates. If not, this is the shortest all candidates meeting on record. I'm sure we'll have some questions. Don't forget, identify yourself and where you're from.
I'll break the ice. My name is Peter Stork. I live in Southampton. My 60-second question is, our scientific knowledge is different than it was in previous generations, and it will be different in future generations. Why do you think our present knowledge, our present science, is sufficient enough to bury nuclear waste in an agricultural and tourist area on the edge of Lake Huron?
Okay, Peter, you didn't direct it, so I'll direct it alphabetically.
I wanted to direct it to all of the candidates.
Yeah, they'd all hear it anyway. Okay, so we'll start with Gerard Crisis, who, by the way, the candidates will be answering from the table now.
Okay.
And you have 2 minutes, Gerard.
Okay, so the question was, and I'm sorry I wrote it down, but I'm just awash in notes from a bunch of different meetings. So, why do I think our present science is sufficient enough? One, I'm not necessarily sure it is. What I think is we really have to work with the science that we have at hand and find the best alternatives possible. And actually our Great Lakes critic, Brian Massey, has actually put a resolution out trying to defer any decision on the DGR until we exhaust all available technologies, all available options, and well, talk to all communities around the Great Lakes Basin. Now, if you're asking me personally, I would like to see science go in a different approach, and I would like to see it put into recycling technology. I would like to see it be put into waste reduction technology, and to be seen to try and cut down on the vast amount of waste that is not necessarily low, intermediate, or even contaminated at all waste. I think if we can invest in that technology to be able to even scan or just assess the amount of equipment or goods that don't even need to be put into these repositories, I think that would be a tremendous first start.
Okay, thank you, Gerard. Ben Lobb is next.
Okay, I guess I should ask for clarification. Are you speaking generally about all DGRs, the low and intermediate DGR, or the proposed spent fuel DGR?
I'm speaking about the low and intermediate level waste that's planned at the Bruce facility, and potentially the high level waste that may happen in this region.
Okay, thanks for the question. I'll just address the low and intermediate one for this question. This has been an exhaustive process. As many in this room would know, all of the low and intermediate waste is stored on the Bruce site with the Western Waste Facility. It has so for years. Each and every day, trucks carry that waste from Darlington and Pickering to the site. They've done it safely for 40 years. The question on the DGR itself, the process has been at least a decade long. The environmental assessment was exhaustive. The public meetings were in the public and for all, and the report that was produced from the panel was quite in-depth and provided both opinions, I feel, and I think the results and the conclusion is that it is safe. And I'm not a geologist. I don't think any of us up here are geologists or geology engineers, so I take the experts for what they say and their recommendations. I've supported it based on science, but also we have to remember that it has to be safe for our community and supported by our community, and I think we've seen that as well. So my position's been clear on it for a long time.
and I'm satisfied with the process.
Thank you, Ben. Our next speaker from the Green Party, Judith Spletsnusser.
Well, scientists are not all really in agreement, and Ontario Power Generation had their own scientists pointed out problems. So I think scientific knowledge is certainly developing, and sometimes it's basically after the fact, people find out that they basically estimated certain things. There's examples, Maxi Flack's report from the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, which is not really publicly available, like you have to look for it, but they don't provide it, that scientists estimated that tritium would move just a very small amount in a long time, and when they tested it later on, it didn't move how they estimated. So scientific knowledge develops after actually, like it's often just guessing things, and when you have the situation, it shows that you have more knowledge afterwards. So there is we have been also not really an open discussion has not really happened. Because there's a lot of things, like no DGR in the world exists in limestone that hasn't, and no DGR, like there's 3 other DGRs that have failed. And so because of scientific knowledge will develop, and I truly think that's one main reason, because of the unknown, the risk is too big to bury the nuclear waste close to farmland and water, and that's what the Green Party is very clear, and our leader takes a stand on it, and we are the only leader that takes a stand clearly against the build-up.
Thank you. And now from the Liberals, Alan Thompson.
Thanks for the question. It's a very important issue. I think for some people it's the most important issue for them in this election. I think it is very, very critical when we talk about this that we're clear what we're talking about, and that we distinguish between 2 separate projects, the deep geological repository proposed for low and intermediate waste, and a process that's a separate process further down the road to deal with spent fuel. I do regard them as 2 separate but related projects, and I think your question really touches on the first. It's the one that is in front of us now. It's the one that the Joint Review Panel reported on in May, and I think it's the one that whoever is given the privilege of becoming the Member of Parliament for Huron-Bruce after October 19th will be faced with. For me, 2 things are of utmost importance: the continued safety and security of our communities, and my support and the support of my party for nuclear power as a safe, clean source of energy, and as the economic backbone of our local community. I looked at the Joint Review Panel report when it was released. My preliminary assessment of the report is that it appears to address concerns about the safety case, local geology, the Great Lakes, long-term safety, and the responsibility of OPG to manage the project. As I said, one of us will be your Member of Parliament after October 19th. If I'm given that privilege, I will be following this very, very closely to make sure that at every step the project is environmentally sound and ensures a safe and prosperous Huron-Bruce.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Our next questioner.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Day, and I am from Southampton. And I have a question for Mr. Law. For the past 10 years, I've been involved in committees regarding the protection of our water resources. And when your government took office, there were approximately 2.5 million lakes and rivers that were protected under law. After the two omnibus bills, with the repeal of the Fisheries Act and the Navigable Waters Act, there are now just 159 lakes and rivers out of that 2.5 million that retain protection under the law. I'm wondering if you are okay with this, and if you could help me understand why your government felt it was necessary to strip the protection from our lakes and rivers.
Great question. I wish I had 10 minutes to fully explain why we've done this and the rationale behind it. You're speaking about the Navigable Waters Act, which would be one of them. The Bayfield River would be considered a navigable water under the old law, the old act. So would the Maitland and so would the Saugeen. There haven't been too many steamships hauling cargo up those recently that would require navigation or Transport Canada. That's why. There's been a lot of misinformation about this. The other part was a few years ago, the species at risk. A farmer's municipal drain was also would protect a fish. Now, a farmer's municipal drain is not a fish habitat. It's a drain. And so when a farmer went to clean out his municipal drain, he actually had to have fisheries and oceans come and approve it. That's red tape when we're talking of red tape. To give you an example, there was a project in Bayfield where they fixed a bridge. The Bayfield River flowed through it, under it, and the provincial Ministry of Environment was in charge of that project to protect the water. We're trying to eliminate duplication to save taxpayers dollars while still protecting the environment and protecting fresh water. That's what we've done. There has been so much duplication in this country that costs you and I each and every day that we've been able to eliminate some of that duplication, and we still are protecting. The Ministry of Transportation also gets involved. The Ministry of Environment provincially gets involved. It used to be, and you can talk to municipal councillors, any that are here, when you used to do a project, a building project, what have you, you actually had to get two environmental assessments, a federal environmental assessment and a provincial environmental assessment. That's just waste, ladies and gentlemen. The engineering companies in our area are very qualified, very competent. We don't need two, we just need one. And we've been able to do this, protect the environment, and also protect our pocketbooks. And that's, I know it sounds good when you hear it about this navigable waters. We've protected the waters where navigation takes place. Unfortunately and obviously, there's not much navigation taking place up and down our rivers, just in the spring, and it's on a canoe, and if you're lucky, you don't tip it.
Thank you. Now, do any of the other candidates wish to address that question? Anybody?
Yeah, I can take
Okay,
it.
Gerard Crisis.
I guess just by Mr. Lobb's answer, instead of the Navigable Waters Act, it's the Profitable Waters Act. I mean, that's really the approach that this government is taking. And yes, you can't run a freighter down the Bayfield River, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve protection. Just because it's not necessarily... well, just because you can't ship cargo on it, I mean, doesn't mean it doesn't have value, right? And it's the same with rivers and streams across this country. And the NDP, our approach to water is simple. Treat it as a resource, don't treat it as a commodity. And we also, while we're doing that, we want to create a national clean water strategy so that all Canadians do have the basic human right of accessible, clean, and fresh drinking water.
Yuta, do you wish to?
The Green Party policy is keep it, conserve it, and protect it. So bulk water exports should not be being allowed, and that's what we worry as well in the trade agreements. And also the environmental assessment is needed for industry. So I think by changing and not protecting our rivers, we're risking to basically make it easier for industry to access our rivers. So obviously Canadians want protection.
Alan?
In a riding like this one, that is essentially, it's a coastal community, it's traversed by a number of rivers, important watersheds. We simply cannot do enough to protect our freshwater resources. The previous government has cut in this area, and I think it's quite well known the sort of disregard for science and for evidence-based policy making. A Liberal government would increase by 10 times the protected marine and coastal areas across the country, reinvest in research and science devoted to our freshwater and oceans.
Thank you, Alan. Our next questioner.
Hi, I'm Sandy Primo and I'm living in Southampton. My question's very short. I appreciate that we're all here to help the people in Huron Shores. I'm wondering what we can do to help with our doctor shortage and what we can do to help attract doctors to come and stay in our area.
Why don't we start that one with Yuta. Yuta?
Well, I don't think that the federal government has a hand in hiring doctors, but I'm aware of the problem, and our commitment is certainly in healthcare. There is plans, but by committing healthcare dollars and also providing farmer care, like for a citizen having access to medication. But it certainly, it's a big struggle in these communities, and I just heard somebody today said, well, why don't we let qualified doctors from other countries actually work, and they're probably willing to work in our small communities. But we make it so much harder to have people entering even into the country that are skilled. And so I thought that was a really important comment, that our barriers become larger for refugees to enter, right? And yeah, I think that is really important. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Yuta, and we'll move to Liberal Alan Thompson.
Healthcare is delivered by the provinces, but it's a joint responsibility. It is, when you're knocking on doors, after people finish talking about Stephen Harper, the next most common issue that comes up is healthcare, without question. Young or old, but particularly among seniors, there's a very, very real concern about healthcare. And I think that has a lot to do with living in a rural community where we're further away from major centers, from specialists. This is perhaps one of the single most important policy issues for us to deal with. It's not enough to blame the provinces. I think we need a Prime Minister who would take a leadership role on such an important issue and look for ways to bring about the kind of federal, provincial cooperation that could bring forward some sort of change and improvement in the field of healthcare. And again, I think a member of Parliament representing a rural community like Huron-Bruce should also make it an absolute priority to try and address and make others address the situation, healthcare situation for those who live in rural communities. This is not unique to Huron-Bruce. We're not the only rural community in the country, and yet I don't think we have a very real sense of national best practices, what's working in other places, in other provinces. That's because there's not a lot of conversation going on, because we have a Prime Minister who is not taking that kind of leadership role on critical files like healthcare, and that has to change.
Thank you, Alan. Ron Cresses?
Sure. The NDP's got a pretty concrete plan here, and by that I mean a totally concrete plan. We want to dedicate $300 million to build 200 new medical clinics across this country, because the federal government's role in this is working with the province. And if we could take a time machine, the federal government's role would be not letting a $36 billion health accord expire with the provinces and then refuse to sit down with them. And that's exactly what we have in this case. But further, to address doctors specifically, we want to help hire 7,000 new doctors and nurses in this country and target communities where there are shortages. That is the NDP plan. We want to create a mental health strategy for young adults, because right now we have 1.5 million young adults under the age of 24 who don't have adequate mental health services. And in rural Canada, in this riding, in rural ridings, it hits all the more because of lack of transportation, because of poverty, because of isolation. We want to address this head on. And we also want to focus on Indigenous health by putting away $10 million a year in research and providing $15 million a year for providers. And we want to work with First Ministers again to get that health accord back in shape that Harbour let expire, because that just wasn't right.
Thank you, Gerard. And Ben Law.
Thanks very much. If you want to ask a doctor what will help, what would help, I would think that the doctors would offer at this point in time that we need a new premier. The premier has treated doctors shabbily. Ask a doctor and find out, ladies and gentlemen. I've had a number of doctors contact me recently. They're quite upset at the cuts they're facing. It's unfortunate. Also, I've had a number of conversations with pharmacists. They're getting nickel and dimed by Kathleen Wynne. We are transferring record amounts of money to the province for healthcare, $34 billion this year. That's up a significant magnitude from when our government came in office. We're increasing 6% per year. Unfortunately, successive premiers, Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne, only increased healthcare funding at a rate of 1.5%. They're keeping the other 4.5% for something other than healthcare. We have to change this, folks. We have to change this. We have to have a premier that respects doctors, a premier that respects healthcare and starts to really fund healthcare again in this province. One of the other things that we've done is working on student loan forgiveness for doctors that are willing to come to rural and remote areas. That's been effective. In addition, I've supported personally for fundraising efforts, and we've done our best to promote the Gateway Centre in Seaforth, Ontario, that does rural health and rural health promotion. That's been a very effective tool for them to encourage doctors to come here, to be doctors, but also continue on with the research that they seek to do. Recently, the Kincardine Hospital and I believe the Walkerton Hospital have signed on with the Gateway. Many of the hospitals in Huron County have signed on. It would be great. I don't believe Southampton has. It would be great if they could as well. It's one of the doctor recruiting tools that has worked very effectively. Gwen Devereaux is one of the leads on that, and I think it would be a great opportunity for our communities to take hold of that, and it really impresses young doctors when they come into our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I think we have another questioner here, sir.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Art Grady from Southampton. I was going to ask this question even before it was brought up, and it's about, guess what, omnibus bills. I would like to hear very specifically from each candidate about whether they are for or against omnibus bills, the reasons for that, and if they are against it, what would they propose to change from the standpoint of democracy, transparency, and a reasonable ability to debate without cutoff, as has happened in the past.
Okay, thank you, Art, and we've been rotating, so Alan Thompson, you'll be first up.
Yep. As I mentioned, just before the election started, Justin Trudeau put forward a plan for open government, democratic reform in Canada. One of the key elements of that was a commitment to end the abuse of omnibus bills and also the prorogation of Parliament. We simply should not have a situation where a Prime Minister can prorogue Parliament at his own convenience. Maybe there was a time and a place in another century when omnibus bills, perhaps when you were trying to expedite important measures, group together like measures in a bill, but we almost need a new word for these pieces of legislation. Omnibus hardly captures it. Some of these pieces of legislation are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages in length. It is simply not possible for Parliament to play a meaningful role in reviewing legislation when omnibus bills is used to cram measures through Parliament. It is not a way to be more efficient or to expedite the rule of law. It is a way to hoodwink and to jam measures through Parliament and not give members of Parliament the time to do their jobs, which is to be our eyes and ears and review legislation as it goes forward. So we should not allow the abuse of omnibus bills.
Thank you. Gerard Cressis.
Well, back in the day when Stephen Harper was a younger man, he came to power by decrying the Liberals' use of omnibus bills. And, you know, the wheel of time turns and the circle of life repeats itself. But omnibus bills, I mean, it's just a measure to get things passed that should never be passed. And we've seen that time and again. You know, hundreds of pages of things that these guys aren't given enough time to read. It's just sent through and everybody votes. They don't do their responsibility, take the time, and even ask for the time to read it. And that, I think, is the big problem here, is that when there's so many varied things crammed into one bill and you don't have the time to read it, and chances are you're not going to be given any time to debate it, where's the responsibility there? You know, why isn't anybody trying to take responsibility? Where's the ambition even to take some responsibility on that? They should be examining this, looking at it, realizing, okay, a budget, maybe that big. Why is it a whole War and Peace novel on my desk? You know, doesn't that sound alarm bells in anybody's head? And I'll put that to the guy next to me.
Thank you for the question. Gerard is correct on one matter. The previous Liberal government were experts at omnibus bills. And that's a fact. That's a fact. And the other fact is that when Tom Mulcair was a minister in the Quebec legislature, he was very supportive of omnibus bills as well. So they do happen. We can like them or dislike them, but they do happen. And I would challenge anybody here or any of our constituents from one end of the coast to the other to find out one piece in legislation that's been a negative result of those bills. You just won't find it. We have stronger, more effective. We have stronger, more effective.
Let's hear what he's got to say.
We have stronger, more effective environmental protection than we've ever had. And on the issue of debate. On the issue of debate, we have 308 MPs. We'll have 338 MPs after this election. Each member is allowed to debate for 20 minutes with 10 minutes of questions and answer at second reading and at third reading. That is plenty of debate. And my observation in 7 years is that the opposition members that come and speak to, whether it's a budget bill, a law and order bill, it really doesn't matter what bill it is, very few of them ever actually speak about what is in the bill. And that may be a reflection on them. I don't know. Nobody's perfect. But if opposition members are so consumed about the details in an omnibus bill, I would encourage them to actually speak to one. In addition to the committees, we have been more than generous as a government under the leadership of the Prime Minister to break out pieces, whether it's in a budget bill or another bill, to break out pieces to different committees so the committee members are able to discuss at great length items and topics inside the budget or other pieces of legislation. You should check the record on that. I believe in the last budget, it maybe went to 10 different committees so that members of Parliament, the public, all interested could have a full debate and discussion, an exhaustive list of witnesses offered by the opposition and government members. The transparency is there, ladies and gentlemen. We just need to dig a little deeper to make sure that we're actually reading where the transparency is. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker on this question is Judith Spletzdalser.
I find it amazing how when you're faced with the facts, you always push the opposite. I have experienced that quite often in the last debates. Anyways, to your question, against like the omnibus bills, I'm certainly against omnibus bills. And one reason, like, so the Green Party is very committed to reverse as much damage that has been done. And the problem is if amendments would be accepted, then that would be fine. But what is the record? 99% of the amendments are denied. So it is just very difficult to have, like, if you debate something but you don't allow an amendment to an omnibus bill, then that's just really poor democracy. And we experience it in all levels of government, how difficult it is to get through the text as well through. And you need time and advisors to really understand. And I've experienced it in the municipal government as well, that people vote on things, and I point out some things, and it's very rare that people realize and then actually admit and allow more time. So a good example is C-51, which Elizabeth May opposed and pointed out that it amended 5 different laws, and she has 4 former prime ministers that are also against it. And so there's a number of people that do recognize that freedom of speech is certainly restricted, and CSIS gets quite a bit of power. It does not really, this law did not really give us more security that would be beneficial. And so I really think there's a lot of examples, and you and I could be terrorists before we even know it. So.
Okay, thank you, Jutta. We have another questioner here.
Thank you. Pat Sanigan from Southampton. A couple of the areas that haven't been discussed as much, I think, in this campaign are women's issues and Aboriginal issues. They come together in the murdered and missing Aboriginal women, and I would like to address the question to Mr. Lobb about what his government would do about that, but apparently that's not on their agenda. So I will ask the other candidates to please talk about that. And if Mr. Lobb, if that's not the case, I'd be really interested to hear what the Harper government has plans for that too.
That's exactly what you will hear. We'll hear from all 4 of them. And we'll start with Gerard this time.
Okay. Well, I guess a 2-part question here. The first dealing with, well, I guess they both tie in together here. As far as Aboriginal issues, the NDP has been quite clear. We want to commit to an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women within the first 100 days of forming government. And I remind every single crowd that we've spoken to, these guys are probably sick of this statement already, but we had 2 men killed in Canada in October, and that was enough to send us to war. And we have 1,200 missing and murdered Aboriginal women. This government doesn't do a damn thing. Think about it. Now, when it comes to Parliament, you know, the NDP is a party that leads by example. We are closer to gender parity for seat count than any other party. We have more female candidates than any other party. And we're really trying to do our part, again, addressing, and this ties back into rural poverty because a lot of it does, addressing widowed seniors and young single mothers. With young mothers, we want to make sure that if they want to work, they can have $15 a day affordable child care. And with seniors, we want to increase the GIS to make sure that nobody is retiring into poverty. And as I said before, this disproportionately affects widowed seniors in this riding. And so we have to at least start from the bottom, start from the people up, and that's the NDP's approach to this.
Thank you, Gerard. The next speaker, Ben Lobb.
Thank you for your question. I think it was a 2-part question. On the topic of the missing and murdered Aboriginal women, we've been very clear on the
the call for a public inquiry. We have, it's $15 million. There's been over 30 reports and studies done on the issue. It is a very terrible issue, but the reality is the law enforcement, RCMP, social groups in the communities where they are affected, they know what the issues are, and they're working to make the communities safer. That's the reality of the situation. It's a very serious situation, but police in British Columbia, police in Manitoba and Winnipeg, they understand the issue. Social workers understand the issue in Regina. They're working on it every single day. We brought a bill in on matrimonial property rights. The opposition voted against that. That would have given women on reserve some rights that they didn't have before. Kelly Leach is our Minister of Status of Women. She's one of the leading orthopedic surgeons in the country, and in fact probably in the world. She is an excellent role model for women. She's been working very hard from coast to coast to be able to give women great opportunities, great leadership, a great role model. I'll give you one example of some funding that has taken place in this area. It was a project with Rural Response for Healthy Children, and it was a program the federal government funded to help young and at-risk women become financially independent. Many young women who are at risk don't have bank accounts, they don't have checkbooks. They really had limited knowledge on their finances. This program was set up, Rural Response for Healthy Children. They went community by community, working with young and at-risk women on how to manage their finances. What is the managing finances does? Gives them an opportunity to break away perhaps from a tough situation and become independent. It's not changing the world in a day, but those little steps can help make some big changes in a woman's life. In addition to that, another topic I'd like to talk about briefly, I will probably run out of time, is the Transparency Act. And this is something we brought in so that people on reserve have the ability to know how much their chiefs and council are making. And we didn't know that before.
Sorry, Ben, you ran out of time.
Okay.
So in our party, we actually have usually a female and a male representative, like to really balance positions on boards. I think it's really important that we have better policies that really help more equal representation. I mean, we are 50% of the population are women. And I have 3 girls and 1 boy, but I really don't want my daughters to only make 71 cents of the dollar just because they're a woman. And so equal pay is very important, and equal opportunities in public positions. And certainly we want to end the violence against women and develop better policies for that. And we also stand behind giving women the choice for safe and legal abortion.
Thank you, Yuda. And now, Alan Thompson.
First on women's issues, I think it is very unfortunate that the leaders of our parties held half a dozen debates and did not hold a debate on women's issues. And it is still a mystery to me why Mr. Harper and Mr. Mulcair refused to participate in that debate. In terms of the Liberal Party's approach, I think there's something quite significant that was in that democratic reform package that Justin Trudeau announced some time ago. For the first time ever, he committed as a party leader that as Prime Minister, he would have gender parity in his cabinet, an equal number of men and women in the federal cabinet, which I think is a very significant step, a step forward. On the issue of First Nations, Canada's treatment of its First Nations is a scar on the national narrative of this country. It's a blight on our history and on our present and on our future. This is again another example, one of those issues that the Prime Minister of this country has to take hold of Paul Martin, as Prime Minister, did forge an accord among all the leaders of the provinces and the territories to deal with the question of our First Nations, and that was scuttled by Mr. Harper. On missing and murdered Aboriginal women, absolutely, this is not about having another study, this is not about the price tag on these women's lives or on the well-being of their families. We must have an inquiry, the highest form of investigation that is allowed under Canadian law. Those women and their families deserve nothing less.
Thank you, Alan. We still have time for some questions, 10 more minutes or so. Certainly.
Hi there, my name is Heather Wallace. I'm from Southampton, and my comments are directed to Mr. Love. First of all, I'd just like to make a comment that I have never known a Prime Minister to refuse to meet with the press as much as Mr. Harper. Never in my days. He's never available for whatever reason, or he just refuses to. I'm not sure what's happening there. But my question is about this recent Trans-Pacific partnership. Why is it that we are only learning about it when it's practically a done deal? Why aren't citizens told about upcoming things in our future?
Mr. Love, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. The Prime Minister is available to the media quite frequently, and he's happy to communicate. But I would like to mention, though, in the year 2015, you don't just have to talk to a journalist to communicate with the public. There are many, many, many different mechanisms to communicate with Canadians, and I would argue, now I do have two journalists up here, there are some more effective ways if you want to be able to communicate directly. Now, on the issue of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I mean, this whole notion is farcical because you don't negotiate in the public. That makes no sense. What we're negotiating, ladies and gentlemen, are tariffs on products that we already sell to those countries. So what we're negotiating is whether or not we're going to pay 30% on edible soybeans or we're going to pay 0% on edible soybeans. There's no mysteries, there's no secrets, but as Jason Kenney, the Prime Minister, have made very clear, Minister Ed Fast for International Trade, you don't negotiate these deals in the media, you don't negotiate these in the public. Why? Because it puts you at a position of weakness. We have a great deal with Trans-Pacific Partnership. Every single commodity group in this country is fully supportive and behind Trans-Pacific Partnership. We are a rural community, agricultural breadbasket. The last 10 years have been the golden years of agriculture. There were basically no deals done under the previous Liberal regime. There were no deals done. We now have deals done. We're the only G7 country to have deals with the United States, the Americas, Europe, the Pacific Rim. This is setting the country up for the next generation, for our children, our grandchildren, and many beyond. These will be the golden years of our time. Full stop.
Okay, Yuka?
Wow, like the DFO, Dairy Farmers of Ontario president, he stated that his preferred choice would have been to keep supply management. I mean, yes, he is thankful for the promise of the government that we haven't sold anything, but we already tell that the farmers get $4.6 billion of your taxpayers' money for their income losses. So 250 million liters of milk will be coming from the United States. I don't know if Mr. Lobb wants to drink that. But Canadians want local milk. They appreciate their farmers, and they don't want the same thing to happen, that we risk our farmers. But also, the UNIFOR president pointed out that why is the US and Japan, they have 20 years to get rid of the tariffs, like to phase out of tariffs, while Canada only has 5 years. So why are we not negotiating better deals and let people know the fine print? So I mean, it is certainly not every Canadian, when they find out what it all means, hopefully it's not too late, it's not ratified. So we can certainly get out of this deal or negotiate a better deal. So the Green Party is certainly also for trading, but we are for fair trading, not for trading off our sovereignty and getting into deals that can snowball into amazing consequences, like the Foreign Investment Protection Act says it. The industry gets protected over Canadians' interests.
Thank you, Yuda. We'll go to Alan Thompson.
Ben, don't get me started. When it comes to your boss and his treatment of the news media, I worked on Parliament Hill for a decade as a political reporter. Looking back, that now would seem to me to be the golden age of Canadian democracy compared to the 10 years of Stephen Harper. And this is not just journalists complaining about the level of their access to the Prime Minister. The change to the political culture in Canada that he has wrought is a travesty. It is a threat to our democracy. It's not just attacking the news media, it is restricting the right of ordinary Canadians to know what is going on in their parliament. And I even experienced this as a journalism professor, taking journalism students to Parliament Hill, trying to give them an opportunity to simply say hello to their Prime Minister as he was walking to question period. He ran in the other direction, down a hallway, to get away from a group of journalism students. I couldn't believe my eyes. On the other half of your question, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I mean, the Liberal Party is very supportive of the concept of free trade. The difficulty with the TPP is that we don't yet really know what is contained in the agreement. And I think we owe it to Canadians to have a full debate and deliberation in the House of Commons, in Parliament, to look at the TPP once we know the contents of the deal. Unfortunately, this has been negotiated in secret. Very little information has been released. Mr. Harper likes to talk about veils these days. I think the veil of secrecy around the TPP should really concern us.
Thank you, Alan. Now to Gerard.
All right. Yeah, back in 2008, Prime Minister Stephen Harper came to Goderich, and yes, I had to be cleared by the RCMP to be able to take his picture as well. Just a fun note. And he is available to the media, provided you pay $78,000 to be able to ride on his tour bus. I should clear that up. But regarding the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I mean, the NDP has been perfectly clear on this. There is no way something of this magnitude should ever have been negotiated during an election period. You're handcuffing the next session of Parliament to your own bad deals because, well, let's face it, these are the guys that are going to fall for the used car salesman and then come brag to their buddies as the car falls apart. That's exactly what's happening here with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Said they weren't going to touch supply management. 2 meetings ago, this guy says he's not going to touch supply management. Then, what does the news tell us 2 days ago? They're chipping off the corners of supply management. That's not coming back, that share of the market. Auto sector, 2 weeks ago. And what kind of Prime Minister does this? Says, the auto sector's not going to like this deal. And then, sure enough, the auto sector says, that's going to cost us 20,000 jobs. And then this week, Prime Minister says, this has been the best deal ever for the auto sector. Like, yeah, wrap your head around it. This is bizarro world. Now, the NDP wants to take a solid approach to Canadian resources, make sure that they're processed in Canada, create Canadian jobs, create Canadian value-added products, so that we're not selling ourselves out like we have been. And one other thing, access to markets doesn't guarantee sales. Okay, look at Volvo and Godrich, look at Volkswagen, who gladly took Harbour's $5 million handout and went to Mexico. Access to markets doesn't guarantee sales. Ask Canadian cheese producers after CETA what happened. Oh, we have access to a market from a place that produces or exports more cheese than this country produces. But it was great because we had access to a market. It's doublespeak, and it should never, ever be negotiated in an election period.
Okay, we only have time for one more question.
Okay. I have a document here. My husband is...
Hold on, just before you do, your name and...
I'm Mildred Esplin, and my husband was a war veteran. And here I have a document showing where he was exposed to syphilis for the purpose of penicillin trials on July the 30th, 1941, and it's been covered up by the governments and the Veterans Affairs all these years. And as of September the 14th, 2015, I've now turned it over to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and asking for their attention after being exposed to syphilis for penicillin trials and years of cover-up by governments and Veterans Affairs, and the money's paid out over the years. They're promised a posthumous pension, but nothing's being done about it. I've been on it for 20-some years.
Okay, Mildred, I need a question here.
Huh?
I need a question.
I want to know what they're doing about it.
Okay, so let's see if we can get an answer.
Obviously nothing.
Well, then I guess you got your answer, but we'll ask anyway, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to the attention because the syphilis has been spreading around the country, and we
all right, Mildred, we got the point.
All right.
Anybody, Alan, you wish to address this question?
It's a very specific, detailed question. It obviously involves the case that's private and confidential, but it's the kind of thing that you've proceeded through the courts and through other means. I think it's also something that a member of Parliament would take hold of, would try to understand, would try to do whatever he could or she could to help you. Veterans more broadly, I mean, I think you touch on something that has been a kind of a touchstone in this election, the treatment of our veterans by this government. I personally can understand how a government that claims to be so supportive of our armed forces could treat our veterans so shabbily. And you don't just have to take this from me. There are many, many veterans across the country who are now campaigning actively against the government because of their view of how they've been treated. And the Liberal Party would like to restore the covenant that we had with our veterans. Return to lifetime pensions for those who are injured, if that's the form of compensation that they wish. Offer them free tuition, 4 years of paid education upon their release from the armed forces if they were not able to complete their education. Reopen the Veterans Affairs centers that were closed across the country. And most important, treat our veterans with the respect that they so richly deserve.
Well, I should note first off that our previous majority governments, red and blue, had an easy time cutting from the military and an easier time sending people into harm's way. And now we're in a position where the NDP wants to actually make a difference here, and I'm sorry I don't have anything specific to your own circumstance, but I'm sorry. That is tragic. But with an NDP government, we want to strengthen pensions, increase, $450 million right up, provide pensions for those suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, focus on long-term care and funerals for veterans. We want to update the Veterans Charter to end clawbacks and increase survivors' amounts from 50% to 60%. But it should be noted as well, just a couple of quick, not-so-fun facts. We do want to reopen the 9 closed Veterans Affairs offices, get those 900 jobs back.
But the government spent more on advertising than they saved closing those Veterans Affairs offices. There's a not so fun fact for you. And another one, if you take that $1.13 billion that the Conservatives did not spend in their $3 billion veterans budget, and you add it to the $800 million that they did not spend for Aboriginal education, you would find yourselves a surprise $1.9 billion surplus.
Thank you, Gerard. Ben Love.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your husband's service. I've been over to your place talking about this very issue in the past, and we have worked on it. I would consider it a private case, as Alan alluded to. It's a very complicated topic. It's beyond one service person. There's many service people that were facing the same situation, and it's a very complicated and long process that predates me by my age or more. So it is very complicated. On the topic of veterans generally, it's very important to know, we could have had a debate really on veterans and the treatment of veterans, and my interpretation of our treatment of veterans is that it's excellent. I served on Veterans Affairs Committee for over 5 years. Our government, under the leadership of Stephen Harper, transformed the department of one of paper files and typewriters to modern electronic files, where veterans' records are protected and being able to be readily available to serve and treat veterans as their needs arise. It's important to note there's over 800,000 veterans in this country. There's over 200,000 veterans actively serviced by Veterans Affairs. The frontline staff do a remarkable job servicing veterans. You can ask any person at Allegiant that helps World War II veterans. You can help any, you can ask any case service person that works on base for Veterans Affairs. They do tremendous work. What our government was able to do was allow those people to act and react quicker, so they didn't have to go up the chain of command to provide the services that veterans need. Over 90% of Veterans Affairs budget goes into veterans benefits. We've been able to right-size the department by bringing it into the modern age, a way the department should be run. And ladies and gentlemen, we've done tremendous work for veterans. Our earnings loss benefit program, so that veterans who are injured receive care, receive financial benefit while they're rehabilitating. Now when they leave the Canadian Forces, they have extensive interviews with staff to make sure they know what benefits are available to them, how they can access them, who they contact. This hadn't happened in the past. It happens now. They have a relationship with Veterans Affairs. That's why they're getting the care. The idea behind Veterans Affairs and the new veterans model is a model of wellness, so that a veteran doesn't sit in their basement the rest of their life, that they get out, they get rehabilitated, they fix their physical injuries, they help with their mental injuries and the mental stress, so they can continue to lead productive lives. We often forget how young these young men and women are. They're often very young when they leave the military. They have a long life to live, and we want it to be a productive one.
Thank you, Ben. Judith Slexdusser.
The Green Party wants to reinstate the Pension Act, and it's certainly a lump sum payment instead of a lifelong pension is just not the right thing. We also recognize that on the boards, there has to be, instead of unqualified people, there should be more like people that are in touch with veterans serving on the different boards. So the one simple thing for all the people that suffer on PTSD, they should have, it's proven that if they had access to service dogs, that would really help them, and that is not being provided. So we recognize the deficiencies and certainly stand behind the veterans' needs and think it has to be reviewed. But yeah, I have met somebody come up to me that said he's happy, but that doesn't mean that all veterans are happy with the treatment, and we got to take action.
Thank you, Yuda. And Ellen Thompson.
I think I already answered the question. I can do it again if you'd like.
Oh, no. Please, no. My apologies.
That's all right.
My apologies. Well, then that's perfect timing. How about a hand for a candidate? Ask you questions. Okay, it is time for closing remarks, and each candidate has 5 minutes, or up to 5 minutes, to state their case. We're doing this in reverse alphabetical order, and therefore we begin with Liberal candidate Ellen Thompson.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to end where I began and just thank you for coming here this evening. This is the biggest crowd I think we've seen. We see people standing at the back of the room, and I think that says a lot about our democracy. It says a lot about this election. I do believe very strongly that this is the most important election in a generation. And you face a difficult choice, but also a very, very real choice. You will be choosing the person who you want as your next Member of Parliament in Huron-Bruce. You're also choosing the kind of government that you want, the kind of person who you would like to have as your Prime Minister, and the direction that you would like to see this country go in. And I think those are profoundly important choices. As candidates, I think it is important for us to put ourselves forward and to explain why we think we deserve your trust and the privilege of serving the people of Huron-Bruce. As I said, I was born and raised here. This is the place that shaped me. I've also been fortunate to gain experience elsewhere. I think the work that I've been able to do in journalism and in public affairs is as good a training as any for the job of Member of Parliament. It's also a job that I want to throw everything into. This is how I would like to spend the rest of my working career, representing the people of Huron-Bruce and doing it to the best of my ability. We're getting near the end of this long campaign, and I just have to say, it has been a remarkable privilege to be able to knock on doors across this riding, to knock on some of your doors. I've met many of you somewhere or another in the last 18 months. Some of you here at a Feast or Famine dinner a few months ago. It is a revelation to walk through this riding, knock on doors, and to meet people and to hear their stories. And yes, there's a lot of prosperity. A lot of people are doing very well. But I think there's also a very real sense of a growing gap between the haves and the have-nots and the rich and the poor in this country and in this riding. And I think we need to think long and hard about the role of our government and what we expect and how we will take care of those in our society who are in need and who do require assistance. You're also going to be choosing your government and your next Prime Minister. And I think it's come to a time when we have to say the politics of fear and division cannot and should not be allowed to work in Canada. It is time for a change. It is time for us to return to a positive, hopeful, and optimistic vision for this country. I think people deserve no less. In Canada, better is always possible. There is so much that we can do together. And tonight, I am asking for your support. I am asking you on October 19th to vote for real change, vote Liberal, and vote for Alan Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, Liberal candidate Alan Thompson. Next, Green Party candidate Jutta Splitsdasser.
my friends, I'm here to offer you my services, my ability to listen, and to be honest and restore good government and collaborate on your behalf. What you see is what you get. I believe in a government that shares the facts just like they are and involves as many stakeholders as possible to come to conclusion and targets together. I think everybody has something unique to offer. I'm not afraid to ask questions and talk about topics that are often forgotten. Climate change is one of the most important things. And how many of you believe that, or even like, we have to tax the things we don't want and encourage the things we want. And so with a carbon fee and dividend, we can actually reduce carbon and poverty at the same time. The Green Party is the only party that understands that program. We have beautiful examples in British Columbia how taxation for carbon actually works well. But I think we should really have an open conversation about the risks of the industry that really is so dominant in our community. Nuclear power had its time, and I truly think that even the people should look at the economics. So there's big decisions being made that are not just a 4-year. Those are big decisions, and I really encourage that we have a more open discussion about the risks and the financial insecurity we are facing. The longer we wait on climate change, the bigger of a price it will be for our children. And so having a target and really looking at climate action and being a leader and not blocking climate conferences, how we have in the past. Our leader has, with foreign delegations, participated because she was not allowed to go with our current government to these debates. So I encourage you to see that, lead with your vote, vote for the government that really represents the world you want for yourself, for your children, and for your grandchildren. Vote for Jutta Spletzdasser. Vote for a government that will work together. Thank you, merci, miigwech.
Green Party candidate, Jutta Spletzdasser. And now Conservative candidate, Ben Lott.
Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here tonight. John, you did a really good job. Folks, this could have been a disaster tonight, and let me tell you why. The Blue Jays game, okay, it could have been scheduled tonight for 7 p.m., and I think the four of us would have been just debating with each other. So, luckily it was at 4. Unfortunately, they didn't win, but you're all here, and I give full credit for you folks coming. Like Alan said, this is the best crowd that we've had, so obviously there's a lot of interest in what's going on. I'll also add, I think it's great to see 4 people up there who can have a respectful debate on the topics and the issues, and hopefully you felt like you got a good exchange and your money's worth tonight. Since 2008, I've worked hard to deliver results and be the voice of people in Huron-Bruce, delivering over $137 million in federal dollars to this riding. Nationwide, we're making record investments in infrastructure, including over $100 million in Huron-Bruce and over $12 million alone to Saugeen Shores, including almost $360,000 every year in stable, predictable federal gas tax funds for infrastructure projects in this municipality. These infrastructure funds have gone towards the North Shore Waterfront Trail, Port Elgin and Southampton harbors, and new affordable housing, just to name a few. Over the next 10 years, we will continue to make unprecedented investments in infrastructure through the New Building Canada Fund and restore infrastructure projects in our communities here at home. My Port Elgin constituency office, as I mentioned earlier tonight, has been operating since 2008. We are focused on customer service, your service. Passports, income tax issues, pensions, old age security, we've been here for you. As a result of our actions and our tax cuts and our benefits to all Canadians, like I mentioned earlier tonight, the average typical family today has $6,600 more in tax relief and benefits. We've taken significant action to meet the needs of seniors, introducing pension income splitting, establishing the tax-free savings account, increasing the age limit for RSPs to RIF conversion, and reducing the minimum withdrawal amount for RIFs. Our government has weathered this economic instability with a plan of lower taxes, balanced budget, and economic growth. Since the depths of the recession, 1.3 million net new jobs have been created in this country. And we're aiming to add another 1.3 million net new jobs by 2020. These jobs have been and will be overwhelmingly full-time, private sector jobs in high-wage industries. While the global economy remains uncertain and unstable, we must remain on track and continue with our government's low-tax, balanced budget plan for the economy. The Liberals and the NDP would make different choices. The Liberals are campaigning on running multi-year, long-term deficits and have unequivocally promised to run deficits for at least the next 3 years. Now is not the time for inexperienced leadership that will lead to economic decline, higher taxes on all Canadians, including a job-killing payroll tax and $2 billion increase to EI premiums. The NDP will need an avalanche of tax increases to pay for their tens of billions in new spending promises. Both would add billions of dollars in new federal spending, plunging the country back into deficit. And both would take away the tax relief and enhanced benefits we've provided Canadian families in whole or in part, and add billions more in new taxes. We are confident in our long-term plan and ready to meet the economic challenges that lie ahead, ready to emerge faster and stronger than other countries, just as we did after the 2008 financial crisis. With our long-term plan of low taxes, balanced budget, and economic growth, Canada is able to protect jobs, ready to protect your retirement, ready to keep building our stronger economy. Ladies and gentlemen, only our Conservative government can be trusted to keep the budget balanced, keep taxes low, and benefits protected for all Canadians. On October 19th, I ask you to vote Ben Lobb, vote Conservative. Thank you.
Conservative candidate, Ben Lobb. And now our NDP candidate, Gerard Cresses.
In closing, I want to talk about patterns in politics. As I stated earlier, Canada has been swapping between red, blue, blue, red for the past 150 years. Now we can break the cycle, but first we have to seriously think about those patterns that we see in Canadian politics and Canadian politicians. Now Stephen Harper and the Conservatives say Canada's never been more progressive environmentally. Meanwhile, they refuse to acknowledge climate change and gut environmental regulations. They say our manufacturing sector is alive and well. Meanwhile, we are poised to lose 20,000 manufacturing sector jobs. Conservatives say veterans never had it so good, even as they close Veterans Affairs offices and leave billions unspent both on veterans and the military. Do you see the pattern? Meanwhile, Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party were dead against Bill C-51 until they voted for C-51. They were dead against deficits under Harper until they decided to promise 3 of their own. They were dead against electoral reform until they were decimated in the 2011 election. Do you see the pattern? The NDP got its start with workers, with farmers, and rural communities. In 2015, we continue to fight for workers, for farmers, and rural communities. In 2011, we wanted to bring all seniors out of poverty. In 2015, we want to bring all seniors out of poverty. In 2011, we wanted to strengthen our healthcare system and provide national drug coverage. In 2015, we want to strengthen our healthcare system and provide national drug coverage. And in 2011, as in so many elections past, we wanted to bring about electoral reform so that all Canadians' votes count. And in 2015, we want to bring about electoral reform so that all Canadians' votes count. Do you see the pattern? Now, Harper rose to power on the back of the Liberal sponsorship scandal, but he's raised the bar on malignancy and mediocrity at every opportunity. And the Senate, even further still. We have to change course, because the thing is, if you or I were in that position, we would be in jail by now. We've been perpetuating, though, this idea of a two-party system in Canada for 150 years, because the Reds and Blues are good at making people afraid of change. But there are alternatives, and the NDP has been there every step of the way, fighting for equality, for unity, and for peace, or for love, hope, and optimism. These are core Canadian values. So please, when you cast your ballot this year, think about changing the pattern. Think about breaking the cycle. Think about a new direction for Canada, for our communities, for our jobs, and for our families. So please, commit to voting for change this year, commit to voting NDP, and together we can break the pattern and we can truly take the power back. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. And I know the Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce and the Canadian Federation of University Women who sponsored this event wish all the candidates good luck. Now, it's up to you. As you've heard the candidates say, they are asking for your vote on October 19th. However, if you care to take part in advance polls, they're being held tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. In Saugeen Shores, the polls are at the Masonic Hall, noon to 8 p.m. each day on Thanksgiving weekend. Thank you for attending this event. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving weekend. Good night.